Welcome everybody to Aftermatch Wrestling presents After Week in Review, Week 2. This week I want to talk to you guys about both Raw and SmackDown from the previous week. From, I believe, April 30th for Raw and SmackDown on May 1st. And I also want to get into my predictions for the Backlash pay-per-view coming up tomorrow on Sunday. And for probably some of you today on Sunday. And then I've got a few notes from the week that I want to talk about. And that'll be at the end of the video. So if you want to skip my reviews, probably skip to about halfway through. But I want to get into Raw. Raw was a pretty awesome show for the week as far as the crowd goes. Because that Montreal crowd was very, very hyped for this show, especially when they essentially started out with the golden opportunity to boo for Roman Reigns, and then the golden opportunity twice to cheer their heads off for both Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Yeah, I was really hyped with the crowd when I watched this show, because I just the cheers that they did for Sami Zayn, and then the ovation they did for Kevin Owens was just loud. I think I had to turn my TV down because I watch it after work, and I got home and it was probably pretty late by that point. Anyway. Reigns opens the show talking about the title controversy coming out of the Greatest Royal Rumble, where he says his feet hit first, and then the ref actually gets on Twitter and apologizes for making the wrong call in the moment. And then we get Joe on the Titantron, and he says, you know, he lost the match. Reigns lost the match, and he needs to be focused on Joe, because Joe, come Sunday at Backlash, is going to put down his spiraling career. Which was a great promo by Joe, but we should be used to that after the last several weeks of great promos from Joe. And then we had Jinder Mahal interrupts this segment. And he's a native Canadian, although I don't think a lot of people recognize him as a native Canadian because of his gimmick. So he doesn't quite get the same kind of pop that Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens gets. Of course, they're not only Canadian, but they are super local. They are within a couple of stones throws from that stadium. I think 15 minutes for one and 30 to 45 minutes for Kevin Owens. And Mahal basically wants to challenge Roman Reigns. And then Sami Zayn comes out to aforementioned huge pop. And he says he wants to challenge Roman Reigns, and then Kevin Owens comes out and wants to challenge Roman Reigns. And I'm wondering why everybody wants to challenge Roman Reigns. Shouldn't they be challenging the actual champion, Brock Lesnar? But of course, he's not going to be around until, I guess, maybe Money in the Bank. I'm hoping Money in the Bank, because I'm going to Money in the Bank. So it'd be cool to see Brock Lesnar actually defend the title at Money in the Bank, but we will see. Maybe he'll keep the title until SummerSlam, and we won't see him until the last 2 or 3 weeks of Raw before SummerSlam. Who knows? It'd be a real shame if that's the truth, but who knows? Basically, Roman Reigns, I think, goes to hit Kevin Owens, or hits Kevin Owens, and then Jinder Mahal attacks Roman Reigns, and they all three attack Roman Reigns. And then for some reason, Bobby Lashley comes out to make the save, which I guess is okay, because he's a face, and a face coming out to help a face, fine. But then Braun Strowman comes out to help them, because of course 3-on-2 they're kind of getting beat down, and it doesn't make sense to me why Braun Strowman would come out to help Roman Reigns in any form or fashion, even if he is a babyface now. It doesn't make sense, but whatever. Yeah, it was just, a couple months ago he was throwing Roman Reigns on a gurney off of a dock or something and flipping over an ambulance, and Roman Reigns backed a truck into a post, or into a something. He tried to kill Braun Strowman, but he's just going to forget that and come out and help. And of course this becomes a 6-man tag match for later on in the show. And I guess that makes sense and it's fine and whatever. It's predictable WWE, and at this point I guess we're all just okay with it. Even though it doesn't make sense for Braun Strowman to be teaming with Roman Reigns in any form or fashion, but whatever. And then we had an Elias promo, which even in Montreal, it's Elias just gets over like gravy on mashed potatoes, man, or bacon on anything. Which, by the way, I hate bacon. So your terrible comments about me for hating bacon can go below. But for now, Elias, he just seems to have the crowd in the palm of his hand no matter where he goes. But especially in, I guess, a city like Montreal, and hopefully it'll be in Chicago for Money in the Bank. Hopefully that'll be an awesome crowd, like Chicago is supposed to be an awesome crowd. That's why I'm going. That's why I'm driving 6 hours to go to Money in the Bank in Chicago, because that's the place to go if you want a hot crowd. And I hope to be part of a hot crowd. So we had Bobby Roode come out and break up the fun with Elias, and then they had a match, and it was a pretty good match. And I did not see the turnbuckle to the throat, but I knew something was going to happen with that turnbuckle because I saw Elias pull off casually or whatever, pull off that little sleeve that covers the bolt, and so I knew something was going to happen. I just figured it'd be a head to it, not necessarily his neck. But that was a pretty brutal end to the match, and I guess Elias wins via, I don't know what you would call it, no contest, I guess, or just referee stoppage, even though the bell never actually rang. But Elias declared himself the winner, and I guess he's the winner 2 times in a row. So we'll see where that goes with Roode. Again, my theory about bringing all these SmackDown mid-carders over to Raw just to bury them seems to be holding true up to this point. Then we had AOP, the Authors of Pain, come out, and they faced, I've got this written down, Jean-Paul and Francois in a squash match. And then cut a promo after the match saying the Book of Pain is open or whatever, but basically reminding us why they had a manager to begin with before they ditched him their first night on Raw. Something tells me they aren't going to be very great on promos, at least not yet. Now that they have to do promos for themselves, hopefully they'll get better like Big Cass did. But we shall see. Seth Rollins comes out for his segment, and I've got a lot of notes on this. First and foremost, I don't see why this shouldn't have been the opening segment to Raw instead of Roman Reigns. Like, I guess to get Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens out there in front of the crowd to start up, but this was a pretty good segment because, of course, it had Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, and The Miz, Taraj, and it was pretty funny. It would have been a great opening segment, but whatever. Seth Rollins comes out to say basically that he wants to be a fighting champion unlike Brock Lesnar, and he can actually get the heat for a comment like that Roman Reigns can't. So this should tell you something, WWE. Maybe it's not the gimmick, maybe it's not the guy, maybe it's just the wrong guy with the wrong gimmick. And this needs to be something Seth Rollins does, where he faces Brock Lesnar to try and bring the title back to Raw. And Roman Reigns should be somewhere else doing another gimmick. Not the Superman babyface gimmick. But whatever. Anyway. Finn Balor comes out to interrupt the promo and says that if you're going to be a fighting champion, how about fight me tonight for the title? And Rollins basically teases it with the crowd that he might say no, but of course his character can't say no. He's going to say yes. But then the Miz-Taraj come out and interrupt, and they actually got me here. The Miz-Taraj got me, and I thought the Miz was coming out on Raw. I was like, okay, well, I mean, it makes sense. He's got a match with Seth Rollins at Backlash, so why not come over to Raw just for one? No, it was the Miz-Taraj, and they got me. I was bummed when I saw it was Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas. But anyway, by the way, my favorite part of this segment was before they came out, where Rollins was teasing whether or not he was going to Okay, so I got interrupted by having too long of a video. I guess 10 minutes was max, so I'm just going to put a part 2 in here and go from where I left off. As I was saying, my favorite part of this segment was just before the Miztourage came out, when Seth Rollins was teasing whether or not he was going to accept the challenge from Finn Balor. And he says something about butt, and Finn Balor says, "I like that butt." And I just thought that was funny. I was laughing. Anyway, so the Miztourage comes out, and they say that last week when they approached Seth Rollins and then Finn Balor to join them and create a new Shield or create a new Balor Club, they said that they went about it wrong. They should have approached both of them. And since there's 4 of them, and they had these really terrible T-shirts with pictures of all 4 of them, and they said they should be the the 4 horsemen. I don't know if they were supposed to recognize that it was already done, or if they were trying to be the new 4 horsemen. But it kind of seemed like even though they have pedigree, they're I think they're both 2nd or 3rd generation wrestlers, that they wouldn't know that there was already a 4 horsemen. But whatever. Anyway, of course, both Seth Rollins and Finn Balor turned that down, and they beat them up, or I think the Miztourage attacked first, but anyway. Then Finn Balor hits a Big Show's curtain call on Seth Rollins, and Seth Rollins is just like, "Oh, I should have seen that coming," and that was a little weird. It should have been a little more heat for that move, but of course Finn Balor's a babyface. They're going to put him over as well. It's just smart. It's just smart that he did that. But whatever. Then we had a Sasha Banks interview, and Sasha Banks basically says that the Riot Squad are here to take over, and if she has to do it alone because Bayley doesn't seem to care, then she will do it alone. And so that leads into a match between her and Ruby Riott, where it's just her out there. So, of course, there being 3 members of the Riot Squad, having Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan out on the outside with the interference and blah, blah, blah. And Ruby Riott wins. Although Ruby Riott had a few sweet moves in this. Just a 2nd turnbuckle reverse senton. As low as it was, for some reason she just made it look so brutal, and they really got that over on commentary. And then the Riot kick with Sasha Banks up on the turnbuckle in the corner. Yeah, that 2nd tier Riot kick was pretty sweet looking too. So it was a good match. It just was kind of predictable. Although I guess you could say that you could hope that Sasha Banks would somehow overcome the 3-on-1 odds. But yeah, it was a good match though. And then we had a Moment of Bliss, week 2, with a Moment of Bliss, and that was Alexa Bliss doing her PSA about a Disney World trip that she had with Nia Jax, where Nia Jax spent the whole trip making fun of Alexa for being short and doubting if she could be on the rides, including, and she says, the teacups. And she said, they're just teacups. You just sit there. And she does so well telling these stories, and just her facial emotions and the way she gets across this terrible storyline is just great for her, but still a terrible storyline. So I don't know really how to feel about this, but Alexa Bliss is just a great actress, I guess, and it's tolerable to watch her do a bad bullying storylines. And it was kind of funny, the story, I guess, imagining Nia Jax laughing at her having to order from the kids menu with a couple of turkey legs and just cackling. That was funny, but overall, I'm not a fan of the Moment of Bliss storyline, and I hope the Moment of Bliss keeps going with her future storylines. Just better not being bullied by a anyway, reverse bully syndrome storyline, I guess. Then we had Titus O'Neil backstage being interviewed by, I believe, Renee Young. Maybe not. It doesn't matter who interviewed him. He played off the trip, saying, at first he tried to say he planned that, and then he said, no, I just tripped. But the important thing is to get up and continue on after tripping and falling. And Baron Corbin comes out for no reason, seemingly, other than just to be a dick and say, it would have been more inspiring had you not tripped in the first place. But, 49 other men came out to the ring and didn't trip and slide under the ring, and nobody was talking about their last, 8 to 10 feet coming to the ring, just Titus. And they really buried that video repeat of him sliding under the ring into the ground, but it is funny. It is super funny. I kind of wish that spot hadn't been ruined for me by being on social media at work before I could get home and watch the Greatest Royal Rumble, but it was still hilarious to watch. So that leads into a Matt and Bray promo. Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt, basically, it kind of, what I brought up with them last week about meshing their characters, it kind of answers that a little bit, where they're not trying to mesh Bray and Matt, they're trying to bring them together, but they're still the light and the dark. My problem with this is that it seems like the dark is winning more than it should. Like, Bray Wyatt shouldn't still be too dark. Like, he lost the feud. He lost the match, the ultimate deletion match. He got thrown into the Lake of Reincarnation. He needs to be different somehow, not just a face now. And although I gotta admit, now that he is a face, I'm glad that he's a face. It's been a long time coming, but that shouldn't just be the only thing that they change. They need to change something else with Bray, and putting him with Matt gives him a basis for a character change that actually would make sense if he was to be a little more like a woken Matt Hardy or a woken Brother Nero. But we'll see where they've still got time with this. They've still got evolution to have with this tag team. So we'll see if they mesh them better. I hope they do. I hope they mesh them together better instead of just explaining why they don't bother to mesh them at all. So then we had Lashley and Strowman and Roman Reigns in the 6-man tag against Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Jinder Mahal. And of course, the babyfaces won. And I don't want to say too much about this match other than it seems like Braun Strowman is going to become the king of the hot tag, because the crowd was super hot for him to get that tag at the end. And it just, that's what they're building to when he never gets a tag during the whole match. It just keeps being a tag between the other two guys. So they're waiting for a spot where, I think in this case, Bobby Lashley was struggling to get the tag, and then he gets the hot tag, and Braun Strowman takes out everybody. It was an entertaining match though. Then we had No Way Jose and Baron Corbin, where Titus comes out to essentially get Baron Corbin back for disrespecting him during his promo, and it was mildly hilarious for them wiping down the last few feet of the entranceway so that he wouldn't slip. But it was quickly brought back down to not so hilarious with his fake trip up trying to get into the ring. Obviously fake, obviously planned. And for some reason, even though Baron Corbin said there was going to be no smiles, he smiled when that happened. So I guess that makes up for the fact that he got rolled up from behind for the pin. And No Way Jose defeated Baron Corbin. So yeah, Baron Corbin gets drafted from SmackDown to Raw, only to go up against somebody that was just called up from NXT obscurity, and he gets buried as well. So this is paying off for my prediction for the talent from SmackDown coming to Raw and being buried, but it's still not good for them. It's not really good for me. It's not like I could place a bet on that. That would be nice. Let's see. We had the next match was Natalya versus Mickie James, where Natalya brought Ronda Rousey out with her, and Mickie James brought Alexa Bliss, and Natalya wins because Rousey gets pissed off at Alexa Bliss for trying to interfere in the match and chases her down. Alexa runs up the ramp, and then Nia Jax comes out, and yeah, that's all you see of Nia Jax. Nia Jax really hasn't been shown very much in the last few weeks. Hasn't had a match since, I believe, WrestleMania. So it's going to be interesting to see how they portray her come this Sunday at Backlash. But let's see. I think just before the main event, we had a promo for Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre, one of the camera selfie promos, where they are essentially shirtless in a hotel room together. So take from that what you want. Still decent promo. I can't wait to see them actually have a feud and get a couple of really good matches in with. Maybe go ahead and do the tag team champs, the Woken Warriors or Deleters of Worlds or whatever. But there's a few other good tag teams on Raw that I can't wait to see a few good matches with these guys to see if they're going to actually be a tag team or if this is just a gimmick to put them together for a while to break them up and split them into singles runs. But we'll see where that goes. And then we had the main event, which was a great match between Seth Rollins and Finn Balor, as if the two would have anything but a great match. My favorite spot of the match was where Seth Rollins went for the top rope suplex into the Falcon Arrow, and Finn Balor actually countered and did the Falcon Arrow onto Seth Rollins. I thought that was going to be the end of the match. I thought that would have been a great end to the match. But Seth Rollins retained with a curb stomp, and it was a great match, and it slightly makes me look forward to Backlash and his match with The Miz, other than the fact that there was no interaction between him and The Miz, even though they're on separate shows. Really, when The Miz Taraj came out, it should have been The Miz. Or maybe they shouldn't have, abandoned The Miz a couple of weeks ago, and maybe they brought a message from The Miz, and then they could play a video spot on the Titantron. Maybe something. But anyway, it hypes me for Seth Rollins because he's been on such a tear the last couple of months, especially after that gauntlet match on Raw a few months ago. So I guess it kind of makes me look forward to Backlash, but this being a go-home Raw for Backlash, it really didn't make me want to watch Backlash any more than just the fact that I'm going to watch it anyway. So I'm going to move on to SmackDown Live, which I thought was a slightly better show, even though it only had 3 matches. And the first match, I believe, starting, toward the beginning of the show, because you had Miz TV start off the show. But then the second match wasn't until into the second hour of SmackDown. So for a very promo-heavy show, it was still slightly better than a 3-hour Raw. So take that for what you will. So as I said, SmackDown started off with Miz TV, and Miz says that Daniel Bryan, and by the way, we are back to full heel Miz. I don't think they had any mention of this, him being a new guy, a new person, because of having a baby. He is back to full heel because he basically starts off Miz TV by saying that Daniel Bryan is now banned from Miz TV for being a no-show last week, even though it was clearly shown that Bryan was attacked before Miz TV and couldn't make it out there. And even The Miz tweeted something about that, saying that, basically taking himself out of being in collusion for the attack on Daniel Bryan. So I guess they have just ditched the Miz sort of being a face, but baby going back to being a heel, baby being a heel all along, just pretending that he's a face. But now it's just heel Miz, which is fine because Miz is better as a heel anyway. He has Jeff Hardy come out for the Miz TV segment, and not just Jeff Hardy, he brings out Orton, and he just wants these two out there because he wants to stir the pot. And I guess this is WWE's way of starting to insert him into the U.S. title picture, since he's probably not going to win. And spoiler for my prediction for Backlash, but he's probably not going to win the IC Championship at Backlash. So this is going to get him started into a U.S. title picture. So he's trying to stir the pot between Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy, and Orton basically says, well, we're faces, we're cool. Which is fine and dandy, other than the fact that they've got a U.S. title match at Backlash. And which is fine because when the match actually happened, which I think it was there was a match next, because Shelton Benjamin comes out as well. And he says that he beat Randy Orton last week, who's the #1 contender for the U.S. title. So he should also be #1 contender for the U.S. title. And this makes, of course, a tag match between the two faces and the two heels. And Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy defeat Shelton Benjamin and The Miz. And then after the match, that's when Randy Orton hits an RKO out of nowhere on Jeff Hardy. So at that point, I'm like, okay, that's fine. Yeah, of course, face heel or whatever, Randy Orton is going to hit an RKO out of nowhere on anybody that's an opponent of his. And we've got this Sunday at Backlash. So then we had the Iconics had an interview in the back where I think Peyton Royce does a Renee Young impression and does a Midwestern accent instead of a Canadian accent. But it's okay because after Renee Young calls her out on it, they dismiss Ray Young and tell her to go hunt a moose or something. And that was really hilarious. And I really am starting to enjoy the Iconics just being silly for themselves, even though it's not really funny to anybody else, but they think it's hilarious. And it's chuckle worthy, I guess. It's not belly laugh, but it's chuckle worthy. And we had Carmella be introduced by the Iconics, and she comes out and Mella is money, basically promo over. Mella does the moonwalk to and fro, and she's going the other way, and that was okay. That was pretty funny. So this is going to lead into a match between, well, it doesn't lead into it. It was already announced, but it's a match between Carmella and the Iconics versus Becky Lynch, Asuka, and Charlotte for later that evening. And it ends up being, I believe, the main event. And so we have the opposite vignette I'll go ahead and get into. For the faces, we had Becky Lynch in the back. And at first I thought she was talking to herself, just going crazy. And she's talking to Asuka about losing the match for Asuka's first match on SmackDown. Since it was a tag team match, even though Becky got pinned, Asuka still lost. And Asuka says basically not to worry about it, now to focus on tonight, on the 6-woman tag match. And then Charlotte comes in, and then Asuka does sort of an awkward Avengers themed, I think she says Avengers Assemble. Yeah, Avengers Assemble. And it was okay. It was kind of weird to put Asuka, who's just been this badass, dominant female for the last, 3 years, and now she's making quirky Avengers Assemble lines. But anyway, we had another backstage vignette, a backstage segment with Daniel Bryan being not cleared. Okay, it's not a backstage segment. That was the bar in the New Day next. But basically, Daniel Bryan has been announced that he's not been cleared to wrestle because of the meat grinding job that Roderick Strong did on his chest, and they're afraid of infection, so he's not going to wrestle. Even though I hear he did actually do a dark match versus Nakamura or somebody during the show. I don't know if it was to start the show or to end the show, but then we had the bar walking into the arena as if they own the place, as if they're happy, even though they said that they were going to win the tag titles back and go back to Raw. But they meet up with the New Day, who's got Big E up on Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston's shoulders, and that was a little weird that they would just be hanging out like that, I guess. But the New Day welcomes the bar and has Mr. Bootyworth bring them a stack of pancakes, and here's a butler-dressed guy named Mr. Bootyworth that hands them pancakes. And they smack it out of his hands, and the New Day gets mad. And this basically just sets up a match between Sheamus challenging, not Big E, because Big E was up for it, but not Kofi Kingston. He's challenging Xavier Woods, who gets in Sheamus's face and says, "Your soul is mine," which is a reference to the 90s Mortal Kombat movie. Then we had another backstage segment with Rusev and Aiden English, and then Lana joins the picture, and she's wearing a Rusev Day shirt. And basically, Rusev asks for a moment alone with his wife, and Aiden English goes off, and Lana tells Rusev that he's been doing so well, but something's holding him back. And of course, if you didn't guess it already, she's referring to Aiden English holding back Rusev, because then Aiden English comes back in the picture. And I like the segment for what it was, but I'm just hoping, please, please WWE, don't break up Rusev Day. Don't do it. Just add Lana. Don't break up Rusev Day. But whatever, they're probably going to break up Rusev Day, and I hope that doesn't make everybody as sad as it makes me. Then we had a Big Cass promo in the ring, as opposed to backstage. Thank God they did something in the ring, even if it wasn't a wrestling match. Big Cass brings out a little person, midget, small person, whatever they're called, or like to be called, a little person dressed as Daniel Bryan to come to the ring. And he basically drops a bunch of one-liners making fun of the height of Daniel Bryan, and then says, and scene, and then tells the crowd as if they didn't already know, this isn't actually Daniel Bryan, it's just a little person dressed up as Daniel Bryan, and has the actor portraying Daniel Bryan, take a bow for the crowd, and then gets behind him, and the guy takes way too long to turn around into the super kick that we all knew was coming, but eventually, he gets kicked in the face, and Big Cass gets a lot of heat. And this was a great promo by Big Cass. Another one 2 weeks in a row. So I'm really hoping that maybe Big Cass hasn't been as generic and bland as I thought he was. He was just, the generic bland guy behind the red hot Enzo Amore. Because with Enzo Amore on the mic, you don't have to be that good at your mic skills. You're 7 foot tall, and that's all you need to be. But this was another good promo by Big Cass. So hopefully, they actually put some momentum behind him, and hopefully he actually becomes the next 7 foot dominant guy. He'll hopefully as a heel. I don't see Big Cass being a great face because he's just not that good at a promo. He's good at a heel promo, obviously, in the last few weeks, but I don't think he would be so good as a face promo. Anyway, then we had an AJ Styles interview in the ring. And then Joe comes out and interferes with the promo to say that once he gets done with Roman Reigns, he's coming after the title, basically. So this sets up, hopefully, Joe being the next #1 contender for the WWE title, which I guess it would only make sense for AJ to win, because that would be face versus heel, unless Nakamura wins and it becomes a triple threat, and you just add Joe. But I'll get to my predictions for Backlash soon. Not too much more on SmackDown, because we're finally getting into the second match of the show after Nakamura's music hits, and basically Joe turns around like he's going to fight Nakamura coming from the entranceway. And as soon as Joe turned around, I knew Nakamura from behind in the ring with the uppercut of Doom splitting AJ Styles' beanbag. No matter how many times I see Nakamura hit that low blow, it looks just as devastating every time. Jeez. Anyway, we actually finally had our second match of the night, which was the 6-woman tag match between Becky Lynch, Asuka, and Charlotte versus the Iconics and Carmella. And Asuka got her win back by making, I believe it was Peyton Royce tap out. Oh, that match is later. That's terrible. I'm in such a terrible order for this. I think the next match of the night was actually Xavier Woods and Sheamus. It wasn't much of a match. It wasn't very long. It was a little bit entertaining with the way that they traded in and out of the ring before the roll-up pin. But basically Xavier Woods won. And hopefully this is a second tag team division feud between the Bar and the New Day, at least for the next month or so, because it's good to finally give, because you don't have the fashion files around anymore to have backstage vignettes with all the tag teams that aren't being used in the title division or in the title picture. So this is good. Then we had a video from, I guess, a few days ago or last week of Absolution making fun of Becky Lynch for costing Asuka her match, or the tag match, and pretending like Becky Lynch wasn't standing right there while they're talking about her, and she says if she had 2 good arms, she'd slap them both. And that was okay. I guess that's going to build up a feud between them and Becky Lynch, which comes into play next when Absolution goes to see Paige. First time we see them get together since they were drafted over to SmackDown. And Paige basically said, look, I'm the GM of SmackDown now, and I'm no longer with Absolution. Absolution is essentially dead, and I have something for you. And of course, this was after both Absolution members think that Paige is going to give one of them a championship opportunity. And Paige says, well, which one of you it's going to be? And I think it's going to be Mandy Rose. But it's not a championship opportunity. What she was going to give her was a match with Becky Lynch. So I guess this is going to set up a feud with Becky Lynch. Again, more feuds outside of the titles, so this is good. And the future of Absolution. Are they going to get a different name? Are they going to keep the name and just be, now without Paige and obviously without any favors from the front office? So we'll see. And then we had a promo for Andrade Cien Almas with Zelina Vega doing the telephone video promo, the selfie promo, and basically says that we will see him debut when he's going to debut, and they know when, and that's all that matters, and nobody needs to know. And hopefully it's soon after Backlash. That's my hope. And then we have the 6-woman tag match. That actually closes the show. Carmella basically closes the show by being at the top of the ramp, clutching her title, looking worriedly at Charlotte in the ring because the babyfaces got the victory because Asuka made Peyton Royce tap out. And that closes SmackDown. And like I said, very promo-heavy show. Obviously, I said backstage. A lot happened backstage. A lot of interviews in the ring. But it does hype me for the pay-per-view a little more than Raw did. Especially the WWE Championship match. I'm again going to have high hopes for an AJ versus Nakamura match, and we'll see if it provides the same level that we saw them progress to at the Greatest Royal Rumble, where, like I said, it seemed like they actually got into second gear in that match before it became a double countout. But this one hopefully will have a finish, and they'll get into third gear, and we'll see a really good match. I'm hoping that it doesn't go with the no DQ aspect of the match like the Ciampa and Gargano match did on NXT TakeOver, where people were expecting more in the ring and they got more hardcore, blood feud match type spots and less in the ring actually wrestling. So I'm hoping this is a good balance. But we still get to see Nakamura and AJ Styles get into third gear. And I guess I can go right into my Backlash predictions and just do the WWE Championship match first. I'm thinking that AJ Styles is going to retain. He's going to retain, and he's going to start feuding with Joe. I see Nakamura going for the low blow. And because it's finally a match where the low blow is legal, of course, AJ Styles is going to prepare for it this time. Up until now, I guess you could say he's been dumb for not wearing a cup, but in a regular match, if Nakamura is seen giving him a low blow, then he may get hit in the balls, but at least he knows he's going to win the match via disqualification. In this match, that won't get Nakamura disqualified, so it only makes sense for AJ to wear a cup. So hopefully Nakamura goes for the low blow, AJ is wearing a cup, and he goes right into the Styles Clash, because it would be easily maneuvered right into a Styles Clash. And then either that's the end of the match, or maybe that doesn't finish the match, but then AJ Styles ends up doing a low blow of his own on Nakamura, because Nakamura is not prepared with a cup. But whatever. I think AJ Styles is going to be victorious. I might as well go backwards through the card then, because I started with the WWE Championship match unexpectedly there. Roman Reigns versus Samoa Joe. I think Roman Reigns is going to win, but I'm hoping that Samoa Joe is going to win. So I'm at a crossroads here. Sometimes I like to go with my gut. Sometimes I like to go with my heart. I think Roman Reigns can stand the loss. He's had, 2 losses against Brock Lesnar in a row. He hasn't had a stellar 2018 to begin with yet. So I think, granted, given where he is in the company and the push that he's given, regardless of the boos that he gets, Roman Reigns can stand a loss. Samoa Joe would be good to gain a victory against Roman Reigns to really put claim to that #1 contendership spot for the WWE Championship over on SmackDown. So I'm going to foolishly predict that Joe wins this match somehow. The SmackDown Women's Championship match, Carmella defending against Charlotte. This is hard to call because Charlotte legitimately should win this match, but Carmella has only had the title for a little bit. You know, of course, she got her win with the Money in the Bank, which saves the legitimacy of the Money in the Bank contract, especially it being the very first women's one. But she should not win this match, she should not win this match in any traditional manner. So I would say she only keeps the title by disqualification or some sort of shenanigans. Charlotte will win by disqualification or count out maybe. Maybe Carmella will just run off up the ramp. And it'll set up a future match, probably at Money in the Bank, which would be appropriate. So I'm saying that Charlotte wins, but via some sort of disqualification, some sort of fall where she doesn't actually win the championship. Then we'll have Daniel Bryan versus Big Cass in a grudge match, and I see Daniel Bryan winning this match. I know a lot of people are saying that Big Cass needs to win this match because it's like he's getting this push and this momentum and this heat coming off of his injury, especially being put into a program with Daniel Bryan, who legitimately should be at the top of the card, if only because of the reaction he gets from the crowd, not just the fact that he's an awesome wrestler and a former world champion, former multiple-time world champion. Daniel Bryan is going to win unless Big Cass cheats somehow. If he cheats but doesn't get caught, then I could see Big Cass winning, but otherwise I would say Daniel Bryan wins. So I'm just going to go with Daniel Bryan because I see this feud going forward at least until Money in the Bank, if not further down the road to SummerSlam where The Miz gets involved maybe, but Daniel Bryan wins because I don't think it matters who wins this match because this is just going to be the first match of several, I think. Then we'll have Strowman and Bobby Lashley versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And I see Bobby Lashley starting off the match, or maybe Braun Strowman starts off but gets a quick tag back to Bobby Lashley. Then Bobby Lashley somehow gets worked over by Kevin Zayn and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens for most of this match, and then Braun Strowman gets the hot tag at the end and runs over both Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and he wins the match. The only way it's going to go any different is if for some reason Bobby Lashley turns on Braun Strowman. The bank for them will be against each other. So, yeah, I'm gonna say my money's on Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley winning. I don't see a Bobby Lashley heel turn actually happening at the pay-per-view. If it does happen, it'll be maybe after. Well, maybe it'll happen at the pay-per-view. My problem is I don't care about it because there's no reason to care about this match. You've got basically 4 guys that have been thrown together, other than the fact that Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are best friends. This whole tag team match has been thrown together. So I don't see why this should be on this tag match should not be over top of a tag team championship match. We're not getting a championship match for either tag team champions from SmackDown or from Raw. And this match is on the show. It's just thrown together. But I guess there has to be 4 SmackDown and 4 Raw. I mean, it should have been the Deleters of Worlds versus Titus Worldwide or somebody. But whatever. Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley. And then you're like, oh, the tag team champions are obviously going to switch hands. And then Bobby Lashley turns on Braun Strowman. Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt win the match, keep the championships, and then there you go. And then you don't have to bury Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn in a legitimate tag match where the baby faces are going to go clean over. So, whatever. We'll also have the Intercontinental Championship with Seth Rollins defending against The Miz, and this is brand versus brand, so I don't see Seth Rollins losing the championship in this match. I'm hoping for a really good match. And I love The Miz, and I wish The Miz would win, and for some reason bring the IC title over onto SmackDown, so you have both the U.S. Championship and the IC Championship, and a World Heavyweight Championship that actually gets defended, as opposed to hijacked by Braun Strowman and taken off somewhere. And then you would have a 3-hour show with nothing but the women's and the tag team championship belts. And over on SmackDown, you'd have a 2-hour show with the WWE Championship, the Intercontinental Championship, the U.S. Championship, the SmackDown Tag Team titles, the SmackDown Women's Championship, and probably soon to be, especially since now you've got a woman in power as GM on SmackDown. Although you do have a woman in power on Raw in Stephanie McMahon, but she's more of a figurehead, as I think the not general manager, but the commissioner spot should be more of a figurehead. It should be the general manager in charge. Anyway, that's getting off topic, but you'll also have the women's tag team championship belts, which I hope is coming. Anyway, there would be a lot of titles on one show, on one 2-hour show, but that would be awesome, I think, anyway. The Miz isn't going to win, though. My vote is for Rollins. Well, not my vote. My vote's for Miz. My pick is for Rollins. We'll also have the Raw Women's Championship match with Nia Jax defending against Alexa Bliss. And barring some shenanigans that I don't see happening, Nia Jax is going to win this match, which is fine. Alexa Bliss had a great run as the women's champion. She is entertaining without the title. She's entertaining with the title. So she will be fine without the title, just as she was fine with the title. She wasn't superb outstanding in some of it, but a lot of that was just the way she was booked and the storyline she was given. But Alexa Bliss will be just fine without the title. Now it's time for Nia Jax to have the championship and go on a dominant reign. So hopefully we see Nia Jax win. That's my pick. Then we have the United States Championship match with Jeff Hardy defending against Randy Orton. And again, I don't see a title change happening here. Jeff Hardy is a good U.S. champ. He's a good upper mid-card guy. He's used to having titles, and Orton doesn't need the championship. Orton needs to go on to a feud where he can be a legitimate heel, a full-on heel. Randy Orton needs a heel turn. A lot of people need a heel turn, but Randy Orton has not only needed one for quite some time, but he has been vocal about wanting one for quite some time. So we'll see if that happens. Hopefully that happens against Jeff Hardy at Backlash or the SmackDown after Backlash. But those are my picks for the Backlash pay-per-view. And then I also have some notes. The main event of the show. Just some stuff I wanted to get into. Especially about the co-branded pay-per-views with Backlash coming up tomorrow. Or today, later on today, probably by the time this video gets posted. It's odd to me how they are hyping these co-branded pay-per-views as the best of both worlds. The best of Raw, the best of SmackDown. Both of them coming together to give you the best pay-per-view possible. And then you have matches like Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley against KO and Sami Zayn that are just thrown together and stuck in here for no reason. And you don't even have a championship, tag team championship title match on the show. It's funny that they would lead off the very first co-branded pay-per-view of this new way of doing the pay-per-views with half the matches being this lackluster. There's no build. There's no storyline behind them. It's just a match. Then you have matches like the U.S. Championship with one guy from SmackDown and one guy from Raw. And if The Miz wins, he takes a title over to SmackDown where it doesn't need to be, because then there's no title left on Raw. And so we already know what the outcome of the match is going to be, probably. I mean, they could do some major swerve and then try to get either a rematch where the championship can go back, or somehow get the Intercontinental title to go back to... I don't know. I don't know how you do it. Or not the U.S. title. Well, anyway, I don't know how you do it. So there's so many matches that either I don't care about because there's no build up to them. They're just thrown together, kind of like most of the matches on the Greatest Royal Rumble. Or there's there's no reason to wonder about who's going to win. You already know who's going to win. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. I wanted to talk about Asuka. Even though she got her win back on SmackDown, I think they curbed her momentum at WrestleMania. With the streak being gone, and then her first loss, well, the first two shows, both Raw and SmackDown, even though we weren't sure where she was going to end up, she was still technically a Raw superstar. Should have been at Raw, wasn't there. Wasn't at SmackDown to say anything to Charlotte when she made her victory speech. Asuka was gone for the entire week. Then she comes back and loses after getting drafted to SmackDown in a tag team match. I think they have curbed her momentum on purpose because Charlotte is the one being built up, I think, for a spot at WrestleMania next year in a match against Ronda Rousey. And they don't want Charlotte to be shadowed by Asuka and how good Asuka is. That's why the streak is gone. Because Asuka can just be a regular women's wrestler without the streak, with the ability to lose, with weird gimmicks occasionally where she'll say something funny. She's not going to be the badass, undefeated Asuka anymore. She's going to be just another one of the gals. That way Charlotte can look all the stronger compared to everyone else. That's my guess. Because unless Asuka was a heel, and I don't guess they're ready to turn her heel, then it doesn't make sense for her to be a legitimate contender to Charlotte because they've already had that match. It's time to move on to other feuds. So we'll see how long Asuka stays a face, and then when she turns heel, maybe she'll get all that momentum back. I wanted to mention that Brock Lesnar is likely going to beat CM Punk's 434-day championship reign. A lot of people say it doesn't matter because it's a different title. The reign doesn't matter because it's bookers in the back that decide who keeps the belt or who wins the belt over the champion. Like, it's all storyline anyway, so a record really doesn't matter other than the fact that somebody decided that they wanted it to be a record. So you can make all the arguments in the world, but I think they are going to have Lesnar beat the 434-day record, modern day record, set by CM Punk. It just makes sense at this point, so we probably won't see Lesnar defend the title, or at least lose the title until SummerSlam. Let's see, what were the other things I wanted to get to? Oh, I wanted to get to all the stacked rosters. Because after coming out of the Superstar shakeup, most people agree that SmackDown got the better end of the deal. But there are such a stacked roster on Raw and on SmackDown of single superstars. My problem with this is that there's no jobbers anymore. There's no lower card. You have your upper card, your upper mid card, you have your mid card. You have no lower card. The only guy I think that you have in the lower card is Kurt Hawkins. Because you know he's going to lose because he's got his losing streak going on, and good for him. But other than the tag division, there's no jobbers anymore. You have Heath Slater and Rhino. Sometimes you have the Good Brothers. Sometimes you have the Revival. You know, there are these lower tag teams like Fandango and Breezango, Fandango and Tyler Breeze, or the Ascension, that can just come out and be enhancement talent to get somebody over, just to be, the squash match. Well, maybe not a squash match, but close. But there's no jobbers anymore. Everybody's a star, and everybody's got to get over. So you can't book matches anymore that have good, clean finishes that everybody's satisfied with, because then you're burying one guy or the other. You can't put together matches that don't have a guy that has to get buried because he should be winning. WWE needs a new lower card. And maybe that means they need more titles. They need titles that don't matter. Like, bring back the European Championship. And I'm not saying that a European Championship shouldn't matter, but I always considered it to be under the Intercontinental Championship, which was under the WWE Championship. And then the Hardcore Championship would be at the bottom below everything. But maybe that's what they need. They need championships that don't matter anymore so that they can build a lower card, so that you can use these guys that might have just a tiny bit of momentum because they beat other jobbers to come up and job to a mid-carder or a main eventer. just so you can have these matches where maybe the lower card guy could get over, maybe he could beat the odds and win, but at the very least, you don't have two guys going in a match together where neither one of them needs to lose. Neither one of them can stand to lose the momentum. So that's my thoughts on that. I wanted to talk about the Women's Tag Team Championship possibility, but I think I already got to that. I think they need a Women's Tag Team Championship, and it looks like that they're preparing for this because they're already starting to pair off the women's division. You've got Becky Lynch pairing with Asuka. You've got the Iconics. You've got Ronda Rousey and Natalya. You've got an unlikely duo, the pairing that doesn't want to get along of Sasha Banks and Bayley. You've got Absolution. You've got at least two of the Riot Squad members. So you've already got these pairs going on. It just makes sense to finally have the Women's Tag Team Championships. But I don't see that happening before Money in the Bank. Because, of course, at Money in the Bank, you're going to have the third ever Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. So maybe the Tag Team Championships for the women will be announced at the SmackDown after Money in the Bank. Which is sad. I would love to see the culmination of maybe a women's tag team tournament to crown the first ever women's tag team championship at Money in the Bank. That would be awesome. But unnecessary because you're going to have two Money in the Bank ladder matches at least. So I'll be okay not seeing it. I'll watch it on pay-per-view. Then, let's see. I wanted to talk about the Cruiserweight division because they have killed the Cruiserweight division, and there is no saving 205 Live. That is not to say that there is no saving the Cruiserweight division, but there is no saving 205 Live. They might as well let it go. The problem is they stopped showcasing the Cruiserweights on Raw. Even though we were getting a watered-down version of the Cruiserweights on Raw, that was still what we were getting on 205 Live. Now we're getting a 205 Live where Triple H is in control, and we're actually starting to see matches like the Cruiserweight Classic, but now they're not showcasing those kind of matches on Raw. So people have no reason to watch 205 Live unless they already have been, or in case they've got extra time and they want to dabble in watching 205 Live because they've got nothing else to watch. Me personally, I would rather watch old WWE than watch 205 Live. And I'm a diehard wrestling fan, so that shows you 205 Live is dead. They need to let it go. They need to put it on both brands, and cruiserweights just need to be regular superstars. Where cruiserweight weighted athletes, performers, superstars, whatever, cruiserweight wrestlers can wrestle anybody, but occasionally get to wrestle the Cruiserweight champion, who should be on both shows. They don't need to have a Cruiserweight champion for Raw and one for SmackDown. Just have one championship, defend it on both shows, get rid of 205 Live, bring back Talking Smack, and there you go. You're going to end up getting rid of a lot of the Cruiserweight talent, but that's fine because without 205 Live, a lot of them they don't have the character development. They don't have the charisma. They have a style in the ring that is great, but you're going to have, 10, 12, 15, 20, however many Cruiserweights they have over on 205 Live. You're going to have all of them, and you're only going to need to distribute maybe 6 to Raw, 6 to SmackDown, and then that's it. So you're going to end up losing a lot of them, but hopefully that means you're weeding them out and getting into the best talent, the best characters, the best gimmicks, the best wrestlers, and then you can have Triple H produce the Cruiserweight spots that are on Raw and SmackDown, and let them do in those spots what we saw them do in the Cruiserweight Classic. And maybe that'll just get ratings up for Raw, ratings up for SmackDown, and we don't have to worry about ratings for 205 Live. But we'll still have the Cruiserweights. We'll still be able to see those kind of matches at least once or twice a week, maybe even 3 times if they want to get funky and throw in 2 Cruiserweight shows or 2 Cruiserweight matches on Raw and 1 on SmackDown. But this way we don't have to tune into the network and watch for an hour nothing but Cruiserweights. Anyway, that's my rant on the Cruiserweight division. Yeah, they just need to get rid of the division. And finally, I want to get into Rusev Day. And this will be my main event for the main event. The burial of Rusev Day. I don't know if it's necessarily a burial of Rusev Day because he got over organically with the crowd. That may be the case, but it seems like I would think Vince McMahon and the WWE are smarter than just to bury people for vengeful means, like for reasons of vengeance or anything like that, like anything petty. They're there to make money. And if Rusev and Aiden English are making money, then they're there to capitalize off of that. My guess is the burial of Rusev has all been just a test because he is getting so popular. And I remember a very mirrored storyline progression from about a year or two ago of AJ Styles, where he started out on top, real big coming in, but he lost. He lost to Chris Jericho at WrestleMania in his first Mania match. And he lost a lot of big matches, and people thought he was getting buried. I think he was getting tested because he had natural charisma, or natural good heat with the crowd. He was getting tested to see if he could be that top guy. And so he was getting buried. He was losing matches. He wasn't getting pushed like he should, but he was working through it. And he was doing it all with a smile on his face. And he even did that one spot where he flew up, I think, from Argentina or wherever, and did like 3 shows in a row just to cover for, who was it? Maybe Bray Wyatt that was out with sickness. Well, anyway, he did it all with a smile on his face. And now see where he's at. He's the top of SmackDown. He is the WWE champion, and he has never looked stronger. But there was a time where it looked like AJ Styles was getting buried. I think this is what's happening with Rusev, and Rusev just isn't responding to it like AJ Styles did. Rusev, my guess is that Rusev is getting tested, and he's failing because he's complaining about it. He's not just going with it and appreciating being a superstar and getting to go out there and get those cheers from the fans. He thinks that those cheers from the fans means he's owed something. That's my guess. And that's why he continues to get buried, because until he passes the test and is just grateful and he goes out there and he gives it his all and still gets the crowd into him, even though he knows he's getting buried and he's going to lose that match, then he'll start winning. Then we'll see Rusev get pushed to the top. And my problem with that is it may be too little too late with the crowd that loves Rusev. Like, Rusev Day may get canceled finally for good before he's ever to the point to where they're like, okay, let's push him to the top. Well, then the crowd's not interested anymore. So we'll see. Maybe it is the right thing to do to break up Rusev Day. That way you can bring them back later once you've given Rusev a proper push. And then not only have Rusev with a proper push, but then have the backing of, oh, Rusev Day is back. So I think that would be awesome. But yeah, I don't think there's necessarily a nefarious reason for Rusev to be grounded. Let's say that. Not buried, but grounded. Rusev is being grounded, and he is not, I don't think, passed the test. AJ Styles passed with flying colors, and look where he's at. So maybe once Rusev starts being grateful for what he does have and the opportunities that he is given in WWE, maybe when he starts being grateful for that, that's when we'll see Rusev as the WWE champion. Who knows? That's not to say that this is all true. This is just how the way I see it as a possibility. Maybe Rusev is super grateful and he never complains, but I feel like I've seen this before, and it just seemed like AJ Styles worked through all of the burial situations with a smile on his face, and he did his job, and now look where he's at. Maybe it's just a test regardless of whether you pass it or not. So maybe Rusev is getting buried right now just to get a push later, because he's still getting the positive organic heat. People still chant Rusev Day. He gets Rusev Day chants on shows that he's not even on. And as far as I think WWE storylines have been concerned, the Rusev Day chants should have stopped months ago, because that's where they buried him to months ago, is where the Rusev Day should have stopped, but they haven't, and he's still organically over. So maybe there's still hope for Rusev Day. Okay, so that's the end of my video. That's everything. Well, no, actually, there's a few other things I wanted to get to. First of all, I think WWE might be planning to replace Pyro with computer graphics on the screen, and we saw those computer graphics in a few spots at WrestleMania, most notably Asuka's entrance, where they have the graphics line up 3D as the camera moves to where on that specific camera it looks like those things exist, but nobody in the crowd or on the stage can actually see them. Those 3D graphics, I think they're going to work on those to the point to where they can replace all the pyro that they used to do live with fake graphics pyro for televised, or the televised program. But that's all I wanted to get into. And again, this is Stefan Osborne with Aftermatch Wrestling. You'll probably end up seeing this video on NoDQ.com. Go to NoDQ.com for all your wrestling updates, news, rumors, columns, and results. You can go to NoDQ.com/shirts for all of your NoDQ merchandise. And you can email NoDQMISC@gmail.com to get the beanie or to get a beach ball, which I have. Maybe I'll blow one up and put it in the background for a video or two. Also, you can see me on this weekend's episode of Wrestling Trivia Challenge over on the NoDQ YouTube page. It's youtube.com/AaronRiftNoDQ. I will be challenging Greg Cherry for the NoDQ Championship. If you want to head over to that video to see how I did against the champ. That's about all for those plugs. You can find me on Facebook, Stefan Osborne. You can find me on Twitter, Stefan R. Osborne. You can follow me there. If you're watching this on NoDQ, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Aftermatch Wrestling. It's all one word, Aftermatch. And as always, down in the comments, please talk to me about wrestling. Y'all have a good night.